Why black box repricing is quietly destroying Amazon accounts. Here's something that sounds good on paper. You hire an agency, they promise to PPC, and you're pricing together. One team, two levers, smarter profitability sounds exactly like what you want. And 6 months later, your PPC spend is more, your margin is worse, and nobody can explain why. Not because the agency is incompetent, because the pricing system and the ad strategy were never actually talking to each other. A repricing tool can make your Amazon account look more optimized while quietly fighting your actual strategy. And this is what this video is about, the client story. We had a client that came to us from exactly this situation. They were working with an agency that managed both PPC and repricing. On paper, it made sense. One vendor, coordinated strategy, the pricing should be informed by what's happening with the ads. But in practice, the repricing system was a black box. Prices were changing. The team could see that, but they could not see why a price changed and what signal triggered it, or whether that decision had anything to do with what was actually happening in the ad account. The more we dug into it, the more we realized this wasn't a vendor problem. This was a structural problem because the pricing system was designed to optimize price in isolation. And on Amazon, price is never isolated. The system had one real control: optimization on or optimization off. That's it. And look, I understand why tools are built this way. Pricing feels like it should be right for automation. You've got sales velocity, you've got competitor prices, you've got margin data. Run the algorithm, get the answer done. But here's what the algorithm wasn't considering: whether BSR was slipping and the product actually needed more units, not fewer. Whether the PPC team was in the middle of a ranking push on a core keyword, whether a competitor was weakening and this was the moment to gain position, whether the product had a specific role this week: ranking, margin, protection, inventory control, customer acquisition. None of that was in the system. The system saw price and velocity. It didn't see the rest of the account. And that gap is where the damage happened. How pricing fought the PPC strategy. The worst part wasn't that prices changed. The worst part was that prices changed against strategy. Here's the most painful version of what we saw. The PPC team increases bids to push visibility on an important keyword. They're spending more per click to win that position. And at the exact same time, the repricing system lowers the price to drive units. So now the brand is paying more for traffic and collecting less margin per order at the same time. PPC and pricing pulling in opposite directions, neither wins. The other version is just as bad. The account is losing BSR on a hero product. The product needs units, it needs conversions, it needs velocity. But the pricing system was increasing price because margin looked soft. And now we're fighting a BSR recovery with a price that's making it harder to convert. These are not edge cases. These are predictable outcomes when two automated systems are both making decisions about the same account without talking to each other. Why pricing cannot be isolated. Let me step back from the story for a second, because this is the core idea. Price is not just a number you set in the catalog. It touches almost everything in the account. When price changes, the conversion rate changes. Conversion rate affects your rank. Rank affects how much you need to spend on PPC to stay visible. Unit velocity affects BSR. BSR affects how competitive you look in the search results. Margin per order affects how profitable your ad spend is. Inventory movement affects how long you can stay to push, and on and on. So our repricing system that only looks at price and sales velocity is making decisions inside a bubble. It can be technically logical. The math can check out completely and still be strategically wrong, but it doesn't know what the account actually needs right now. I want to be clear about something. The problem is not automation. We use automation constantly. The problem is automation in the wrong layer. Automation should handle the part that is slow, painful, and doesn't require judgment. Collecting data, comparing time periods, surfacing what changed, identifying which products are candidates for a price move, building the recommendation, showing the reasoning. This is where automation earns its place. It does in minutes what would take hours to do manually across a full catalog. But the strategic decision, do we need units or margin this week? Is PPC pushing right now? Is the product losing rank? Is a competitor about to go out of stock? That decision requires context that no algorithm has access to unless you deliberately build it in. And most repricing tools have not done that. Automate the analysis. Don't automate away the strategy. What we built instead. So we built the opposite of a black box, a white box price elasticity system. And the difference is not just the transparency. It's the kind of transparency that actually changes decisions. The systems pulls together what you actually need to evaluate a price move. Current price, average selling price trend, unit trend, revenue trend, conversion rate, click-through rate, inventory levels, BSR contacts. It looks at recent history, compares time periods, and then gives a recommendation. Mild increase, holds price, manual review needed, and it explains why. So here's the key thing. It does not force the decision. It prepares the decision. A human still looks at the recommendation, checks what's happening in the account that week. Is there PPC push active? Is there product in a ranking fight? Is a competitor weakening? And then approves, or overrides the recommendation. This is the whole system. AI handles the slow, painful, data-heavy part. The human handles the strategic call. What a good recommendation looks like. Let me show you what I mean by shows the reason. A useful price recommendation doesn't just say increase the price. It says something like units are stable over the last 14 days. Revenue's holding, conversion rate has not moved, inventory can support a test. And the average selling price has room above the current price. Mild increase recommended. Or it says units are declining week over week, conversion rate softening, hold the price and monitor before making any price change. Or it says DSRs dropped significantly the last 7 days, or PPC activity is elevated this week, manual review needed before any price decision. The recommendation is not floating in space. It is connected to the signals that actually determine whether a price move makes sense right now. That is what makes it useful. And that is what the black box system didn't have. Not just the data, but the reasoning that connects the data to the decision. Human approval, the most important part. The system gives you a recommendation, but before you act on it, there are questions only a human can answer. Are we trying to maximize units or margin this week? Why? Is there an active PPC push on this product right now? Is this ASIN in BSR recovery? Is this competitor out of stock or weakening? Is this a hero product we're protecting? Are we running a promotion or external traffic? Is there an inventory constraint we need to manage around? None of those questions have answers inside the pricing data alone. They live in the broader account strategy. And if nobody is asking them to approve a price change, you're back to the same problem the black box system had, just with a better looking output. This is the part most sellers skip. They see data-backed recommendations and treat it as a decision. It's not. It's an input to a decision. The decision belongs to someone who knows what the account actually needs this week. What changed? Once we switched the client from the black box system to this approach, the most important thing wasn't the prices. It was the alignment. PPC pushes and pricing decisions started moving in the same direction instead of fighting each other. DSR recoveries weren't interrupted by price increases that killed conversion. When the team was spending more on ads to defend the rank, pricing held or moved in support of that, not against that. When there was an opportunity to take pricing on a weakening competitor, the price could be part of that decision instead of acting independently. And maybe the most underrated thing, the team could explain every price in the catalog, why it was set where it was, why it was left alone when it was left alone. The auditability matters more than we think, because when things go wrong, the algorithm did it is not a strategy. It's not an explanation. The bigger lesson. Let me bring this back to the bigger point, because the video is not really about repricing tools specifically. It's about what happens when you let automation make decisions that require strategic context, and pricing is just the clearest example of that, because the downstream effects are so visible and so connected to everything else. Your pricing tool should not be fighting PPC strategy. Your PPC strategy should not be working against your inventory plan. Your inventory plan should not be disconnected from ranking goals. These things are all part of the same account. The decisions need to be aligned. The right answer is not to remove the automation. The right answer is transparent automation with human control. Let the system do the work. That should not require a human. The data collection, the comparison, the pattern recognition, the recommendations. And keep the human in the part that actually requires judgment. What does this specific product in this specific week inside a specific strategy actually need? That is a system. That is the approach. And it works. If you want to see how we built out specifically the price elasticity system, how the recommendations work, and how we structure the human approval step, grab it from the link in the description below. It's built around exactly what we talked about in this video. AI handles the data, the human makes the call, and if this was useful, subscribe. We put out real content about what running Amazon accounts at scale actually looks like. Not theory, not generic tips, real account decisions and real trade-offs. See you in the next one.